longer period, doubling up the time. That means something. I think there's a good chance that it happens. Go ahead. Would you like to answer that question? Wait. Would you like to answer that question?
Thank you, President. May I speak Chinese?
Yes. Please speak Chinese and you'll speak louder.
OK，
They can't hear you.
I will。
就是从中国来说呢，首先呢，我们认为发生的可能性是非常之大，我们非常希望双方成交。
So from China, we believe it is that.
You have to speak louder. I'm sorry.
From China, we believe that it is very likely that it will happen, and we hope that ultimately we'll have a deal.
中方愿意尽最大的努力。
And the Chinese side is ready to make our utmost effort.
I think we both feel that way. I think we both feel that there's a very good chance that the deal will happen.
Mr. President, on troops in Syria, why are you reversing course?
I'm not reversing course. I have done something that nobody else has been able to do. In another short period of time like ours, you'll be hearing hours and days, you'll be hearing about the caliphate. It's 100% defeated. Nobody's been able to say that. That doesn't mean there aren't some very bad people walking around and strapping on bombs and all of these things, but we've done a job that nobody else has been able to do. I heard Lindsey Graham this morning congratulating me on having defeated the caliphate, and frankly, I'm getting a lot of congratulations. At the same time, we can leave a small force along with others in the force, whether it's NATO troops or whoever it might be, so that it doesn't start up again. And I'm okay. It's a very small, tiny fraction of the people we have. And a lot of people like that idea, and I'm open to ideas. But the 2,500 people that we've had there will be going to different parts of the world. They may be going over to Iraq, where we have a very powerful base. A base that cost billions of dollars to build, frankly, and that we'll be using. But we have had tremendous success in defeating the caliphate. And now everybody's admitting, I did more in the last 3 or 4 weeks than people have done in years. And it's been very successful. But we want to make sure it stays that way. Yes, please.
Tech transfers, going back to the trade deal, we've heard that you haven't made a whole lot of progress on the tech transfers.
Do you want to talk about the transfer?
Does that still have to be?
Yeah,
part of the
I'll let
deal?
Bob answer that. Go ahead, Bob.
The answer is yes. It's one of the structural issues. It has to be done properly, and we've made a lot of progress on it. So whoever told you we weren't just didn't know what they were talking about.
Mr. President, why haven't you condemned the North Carolina election fraud? This is a big story. The Republican candidate is calling for a new election. Why have you not condemned that, given you condemned other kinds of fraud?
Well, I condemn any election fraud. And when I look at what's happened in California with the votes, when I look at what happened, as you know, there was just a case where they found 1 million fraudulent votes. When I look at what's happened in Texas, excuse me, when I look at what's happened in Texas, when I look at that catastrophe that took place in Florida, where the Republican candidates kept getting less and less and less and less. Unfortunately, Rick Scott and Ron ended up winning their election, but it was disgraceful what happened there. So I look at a lot of different places all over the country. I condemn any voter fraud of any kind, whether it's Democrat or Republican. But when you look at some of the things that happened in California in particular, when you look at what's happened in Texas with all of those votes that they recently found were not exactly properly done, I condemn all of it, and that includes North Carolina. If anything, I guess they're going to be doing a final report, but I'd like to see the final report. But any form of election fraud, I condemn.
Mr. President, when do you want to have that meeting with President Xi, and do you expect to have that in Mar-a-Lago?
Probably at Mar-a-Lago, probably fairly soon, during the month of March. Bob, do you have a date? Steve, do you have a date?
We're planning it with your schedule, Mr.
Okay, so
President.
we have 2 schedules, and we'll be planning that with the schedule.
Do you have any concerns about Michael Cohen's testimony before
No,
Congress this
no,
week?
no.
Mr. President, are you still considering...
Lawyer-client, but, he's taking his own chances.
Where do you think stand with Huawei and ZTE? Would you still consider a ban?
Well, ZTE paid a big fine of $1.2 billion, which nobody's ever even heard of before. And we want everybody to compete. And I guess it'll be somewhat of a subject that we're talking about here, Bob. We'll be talking about it. We may or may not include that in this deal,
Include what?
Would you drop criminal
the
charges?
Huawei and ZTE.
Would you drop criminal charges against Huawei as part of this deal?
We're going to be discussing all of that during the course of the next couple of weeks, and we'll be talking to the U.S. attorneys, we'll be talking to the Attorney General, but we'll be making that decision. Right now, it's not something that we're discussing.
Do you think that congressional Republicans Republicans will stick with you on your emergency declaration and vote against?
Oh, I think they'll stick, yeah. Everybody knows we need border security, we need a wall. I think it's a very bad subject for the Democrats. We need a wall. We've apprehended more people than we have in many, many years. Apprehended, meaning we've gotten, with the wall, we wouldn't even have to apprehend them if we had the proper structure. It's costing us a lot of money with the military. We have a lot of military there. We have tremendous border control and border security there. We have, I'll tell you what, the people of border security, people of ICE, the law enforcement, generally speaking, have done an incredible job at the border. We have caravans heading up, and we're able to head out the caravans. We've done a great job. But if we had the wall, it would be much easier. And frankly, it would be a job that would be perfecto, and it would cost actually, ultimately, a lot less money.
So you don't think
Okay.
that
Do you know that resolution?
Thank you.
President,
What?
Okay, I have a question from China Daily. You
China
tweeted
Daily.
yesterday that the U.S. will not block out currently more advanced technology in terms of 5G, 6G. What do you mean?
Well, I'd like to have all companies be able to compete. I don't want to artificially block people out based on excuses or based on security. I don't want to have a security
Including
problem.
Huawei?
Wait, I'm talking about everybody, really, including, but I'm talking about everybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to use artificial blocking. We want to have great 5G. Ultimately, that's going to morph into 6G, and probably 6G will be obsolete in about 2 months, the way it's going, you know, the way that whole world moves. But 6G at some point in the future will be obsolete. But I want to have competition with China, fair competition. I don't want to block out anybody if we can help it. Now, if there's going to be a security reason or something, then we have no choice. But that is one of the things we'll be discussing today. We want to have open competition. We've always done very well in open competition. Go ahead.
Mr. President, your officials mentioned that there was a deal on currency. Can you explain to us what that
Well,
was?
we'll let you know at the appropriate time. But we have a deal on currency and currency manipulation, yes.
Will you definitively veto that resolution that was introduced today that would block your national emergency if it passes?
On the wall?
Yes.
Will I veto it? 100%. 100%. And I don't think it survives a veto. We have too many smart people that want border security, so I can't imagine it could survive a veto, but I will veto it, yes.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
last year you had blocked all U.S. assistance to Pakistan because of terrorists coming from there.
No, I stopped paying Pakistan the $1.3 billion that we were paying them. In the meantime, we may set up some meetings with Pakistan. Pakistan was taking very strong advantage of the United States under other presidents, and we were paying Pakistan $1.3 billion a year. I ended that payment to Pakistan because they weren't helping us in a way that they should have. And honestly, we've developed a much better relationship with Pakistan over the last short period of time than we had. But I ended the payment. We were paying Pakistan $1.3 billion a year. I ended that about 9 months ago. A lot of people don't know that, but I ended it 9 months ago.
But terrorists still start coming from Pakistan, attacking in Afghanistan and India. Resources in Afghanistan and India.
But what are you talking about? What are you trying to refer to? You have to speak up. I can't hear you.
Terrorists coming from Pakistan
Yeah.
have attacked Indian forces in Kashmir.
That's right. No, it's a terrible thing going on right now between Pakistan and India is a very, very bad situation, and it's a very dangerous situation between the two countries. And we would like to see it stop. A lot of people were just killed, and we want to see it stopped. We're very much involved in that, yes, if that's what you're referring
People in
to.
India are seeking right to self-defense.
No, India is looking at something very strong. And I mean, India just lost almost 50 people and with an attack. So I can understand that also. But we're talking, and a lot of people are talking, but it is a very, very delicate balance going on. Right now, there's a lot of problems between India and Pakistan because of what just happened. In Kashmir. Are you talking about Kashmir? Yeah. In Kashmir, it's very dangerous. Yes, please.
Mr. President,
Wait.
On Huawei, sir, just one quick follow-up. Are you planning an executive order on Huawei?
Well, we're not doing anything right now. We may or may not put that in the trade agreement. We may be discussing it, but we'd only do that in conjunction with the Attorney General of the United States, because that is a matter that is outside of what we're doing. So we do that with the Attorney General if we do anything, and I guess there's a question as to whether or not that's being included in the agreement. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. President, we haven't gotten your response yet to Amazon pulling out of New York City, your home city.
I think it's a big loss for New York City. I think it's a big loss. I think it's, if you look at the deal was not a great deal from the standpoint of they could have made a better deal than that, a much better deal. But still, I think it's a loss for New York City. And the $3 billion wasn't a check. It was a form of taxes over a period of time that now they'll never see because, you know, they were going to take in a lot of jobs. They were going to take in a lot of taxes. So I think it's a big loss for New York City. It's the kind of thinking that our country's going to on the left, on the radical left, but ultimately it's not good for jobs and it's not good for the economy. But I think it was a big loss for New York City. I come from New York City. I love New York City. I think it was a big loss for New York City. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, when were you briefed, sir, on the Coast Guard member who was arrested for threatening Democrats and other members of the
I'm
media?
actually getting a very final briefing and a very complete briefing in about 2 hours
Do you
after
have any
this.
thoughts on this man?
I think it's a
who went
shame.
after members of the
Yeah, I think it's a very sad thing when a thing like that happens, and I've expressed that, but I'm actually getting a very complete briefing in about 2 hours.
Do you think that you bear any responsibility for moderating your language when it comes to that?
No, I don't. I think my language is very nice. Yes.
Mr. President, on China.
Yes,
From People's
from
Daily
China, from China.
Trade conflict has been 1 year, now negotiations going on. So what do you think?
Who are you with in China?
People's Daily China newspaper.
People's Daily?
Yeah. And then what do you think? The cooperation is still a good solution?
Great cooperation.
Yeah.
We have great cooperation both ways with China, and a lot of good things are happening. I mean, I think you see that. So many people every day, they are going to make a deal. They aren't going to make a deal. They don't know. They have no idea. It's fake news. You know, it's one of those things. Do they have fake news in China? I think so. But it's a question, are they going to make a deal? Aren't they? I think we have a very good chance of making a deal. But both parties want to make it a meaningful deal. We don't want to make a deal that doesn't. I can speak for the Vice Premier. I can speak for President Xi. I can speak for myself. Both parties want to make this a real deal. We want to make it a meaningful deal, not a deal that's done and doesn't mean anything. We want to make this a deal that's going to last for many, many years and a deal that's going to be good for both countries. But we want to make it meaningful. Now, with that being said, China has the advantage of having many years of tremendous success at the expense of the United States. So they understand that. And I never blamed China for that. I blamed our past leaders. Our leaders have done a lousy job with trade. Our country lost $800 billion last year with trade generally, $800 billion. So the Vice Premier understands that. So this same agreement should have been made 20 years ago, not now. Because for 20 years, the United States has been really taken advantage of. And I'm not blaming China. We should have done the same thing to them. But we didn't do that. We had presidents that didn't do their job. You want to know the truth? We had presidents that did not do their job. Yeah, go.
Will the MOUs be a long-term deal? How long would your MOUs stay?
I think the MOU is going to be very short term. No, we expect to go into, I don't like MOUs because they don't mean anything. To me, they don't mean anything. I think you're better off just going into a document. I was never a fan of an MOU.
So an MOU is a contract. It's the way trade agreements are generally used. People refer to it like it's a term sheet. It's not a term sheet. It's an actual contract between the two parties. A memorandum of understanding is a binding agreement between two people. And that's what we're talking about. It's detailed. It covers everything in great detail. It's just called a memorandum of understanding. It's a legal term. It's a contract.
And would you think that that would be a very long-term deal, sir?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Contracts last while they last. There's no term. They last while they last.
Mr. President, on North Korea.
By the way, I disagree. I think that a memorandum of understanding is not a contract to the extent that we want. We're doing a memorandum of understanding that will be put into a final contract, I assume. But to me, the final contract is really the thing, Bob, and I think you mean that too, is really the thing that means something. A memorandum of understanding is exactly that. It's a memorandum of what our understanding is. But to me, the contract is, the real question is, Bob, so we do a memorandum of understanding, which frankly, you could do or not do. I don't care if you do it or not. To me, it doesn't mean very much. But if you do a memorandum, how long will it take to put that into a final binding contract?
from now on, we're not using the word memorandum of understanding anymore. We're going to use the term trade agreement, all right?
Okay.
Right.
No more, we'll never use the term
Good.
agreement. We'll have the same document, it's going to be called a trade agreement. We're never going to use MOU again.
Are they going to put that into another agreement?
What we'll have will be a trade agreement that if we have major hurdles. I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. Assuming you decide on an agreement, it'll be signed by the two people. It'll be a trade agreement between the United States
Good.
and China. We're
Good.
not gonna use it.
I like that much better. I like that term much
You agree
better.
with that?
Great.
Yes, yes.
I wouldn't go into a memorandum, I would go right into a trade agreement. Either you're gonna make a deal or you're not. To have these other agreements doesn't mean
Never see
anything.
that word again.
Because they're not that meaningful in my opinion. But anyway, I like that much better.
Mr. President, what do you think needs to be done after your meeting with Lynn Patton on Rachel?
On what?
You had a meeting with Lynn Patton from the New York City Housing
Yeah,
Authority?
Lynn Patton is great, and I can tell you, the New York City Housing Authority, the mayor of New York, has done a terrible job with public housing. We're trying to help them, but the mayor of the city of New York has done a terrible job with respect to public housing. We're getting reports back, and it's a disgrace how badly New York City handles its public housing.
On North
And he's
Korea,
heading to
sir.
Iowa to build a
Go ahead.
Blasio. Do you have any thoughts on Bill de Blasio heading up?
Well, I think he has to learn how to run New York City before he starts running the country, because he hasn't done a very good job,
On North Korea,
including, by the way, with Amazon.
On North Korea, your own administration officials say that Kim Jong-un has not actually decided yet whether he wants to denuclearize. So how can you meet with him if he doesn't even want to get the gold?
We have had such a great relationship, and China has helped us a lot with North Korea and with Kim Jong-un since I got to office. If I were not elected president, you would have been in a war with North Korea. We now have a situation where the relationships are good, where there's been no nuclear testing, no missiles, no rockets. We got our hostages back. We have many of the remains back and coming back rapidly, the remains of our great warriors from many, many years ago, and the families are so thrilled and so happy. We've had a great relationship. The Singapore was a tremendous success. Only the fake news likes to portray it otherwise. We would have literally been in a war with North Korea, in my opinion, had I not been elected. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.